Player 3 here. Today I'm taking a look at a newfound hobby of mine, and partially the reason for me being away from the channel for so long, and 100% of the reason why my wallet is empty. Warhammer. To be exact, Warhammer 40k, and to be more exact, looking at the first ever Warhammer 40k video game. What is Space Crusade? Space Crusade. Better yet, what is Warhammer 40k? So, there's this guy named Horus. What? What do you mean? Fine. I've been advised to keep this short. 40k is a sci-fi fantasy game. In Space Crusade, you're in control of a futuristic squad of Marines in space. Space Marines, if you will. Fighting for the Emperor of Mankind against Chaos. And there are ships transformed by Chaos called Space Hulks. They are full of chaotic entities, and you and your squad are tasked with a multitude of different missions to complete in these Space Hulks. More often than not, the mission is to kill these creatures of chaos. That should be a good enough explanation, but where did Space Crusade begin? Well, the video game isn't the origin of the game. The video game was converted from a board game of the same name. Nearly all the features of the board game are the same. So with that being the case, the better place to start would be the creation of the Space Crusade board game 2 years earlier. You know, I really thought there would be more about the board game, but I can't find shit. I mean, the game was designed by Stephen Baker, you know, the guy who I couldn't find anything about. Based on all this, I don't know. I know this doesn't sound very appealing to you other than the stamp of Warhammer 40k content ahead. Now you know how I felt before opening the game for the first time. Assuming the game was but wanting the love of 40k to make it enjoyable in some way. Anyways, let's try this again. Space Crusade was developed by Gremlin Interactive, who were also responsible for the expansion pack for the original Gauntlet. As far as games I've played and am familiar with, that was the only game that stuck out to me. They also made an expansion for Space Crusade along with making the base game itself, which itself was based on the board game of the same name, which they seem to be very faithful to. Space Crusade is turn-based, as it was in the board game, and implements an isometric view as well as a 2D top-down, and the battle sequences are featured as 3D close-ups, which you may know from the XCOM series. I myself recognize that unique feature from Battle Chess on the NES. There isn't too much else to say about this game. It's not extremely sought after, but what I could find, along with pointing things out from the manual, I'll be sure to let you know. Here the manual lists the different equipment in-game unique to each faction you can play as. The Ultramarines, Imperial Fists, and Blood Angels. Unfortunately, there are no Iron Hands. With their Iron Hands, sons of the Primarch Iron Hands. I guess we'll have to make do. So let's see. Yep, I didn't know or utilize any of these to my benefit. That's great. Yep, none of these. So I guess if you're an idiot like me and just pick up the game with no manual and just throw yourself right into the game and try to figure it out, well, you'll have about the same experience as me. Or you could read through the manual first and maybe have a slight idea of how to play the game properly. Your choice. The control panel at the bottom of the screen displays all the different options available in game. From left to right, we have the scroll icon for moving the camera around the map, move, when highlighted, then followed by selecting a Space Marine, you then move that Space Marine up to a certain distance displayed on screen. Fire, select a Space Marine and then select the intended target to fire upon. Hand to hand, same actions as fire but for melee. Orders, this icon will only be active and highlighted at the start of the Marine player's turn. Okay. Once selected, it will not be available for the rest of the turn. If the player has more than one order, selecting small map window in the small, click on cancel. Okay, that didn't really help. Okay, so order right there. Move it. Did it do it? Whatever. Equipment, mostly just different grenades to use instead of your ranged weapons. Doors for opening and closing doors. scanner for scanning for enemies, next player, which ends your turn, and then the next 5 slots to the right of those show the different Marines in your squad, the Sergeant, and the 4 Space Marines. You can click on one of those icons to select a Space Marine, or you can click on the character in the main screen. And lastly, the 3D icon, which was really cool to view in that way, especially during the battle animations, but for normal moving, it was just more convenient to view it up and top down, so you have a bigger field of view. That's the main gist of things. Now the mission selection. I'll be honest, I don't even remember what mission I selected, so whatever the rest of the manual says in terms of objectives, it's lost on me. My personal mission was to just kill everything I saw in that Hulk, so how did I do? Terrible. Not a single win, but that's okay. What isn't okay, however, was the dice rolling system. Again, keep in mind, I didn't know about the manual beforehand, but see if you can't make out what these are supposed to mean in terms of damage dealt and taken. And my god, the Sergeant, compared to the rest of the Marines, whoo boy. If that reflected on the current edition of the tabletop game, his datasheet wound characteristic must have looked like this. He survived multiple shots from multiple enemies. That being said, everyone was here. They were doing the Monster Mash. I don't know how lore accurate it was because I saw Tyranids, Orcs, Necrons, Chaos Space Marines, you name it. All fighting together for the common goal of taking down the Imperium. How nice. And Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts? Oh my god, that is going to be almost impossible to kill. Or I can close the door on him. That was completely by accident. I wanted to push him out of the room I was in, but, you know, that'll work. What else can I say? The games themselves weren't very long. I'd imagine the board game being about the same in time length. Each level felt about the same, slightly different layouts. Overall, I just didn't understand the game. It was neat to see the beginnings of Warhammer 40k in video game format, and even better to see what it's gotten to now. Space Marine is going to get a 4.5 from me. Better than Bubsy 3D, which is always good. In terms of games that same year, it's in third. But I've played 3 so far. This is the first turn-based tactics game I've played, and in terms of the Amiga, last tier 2. I don't really have much to say. Along with this episode spanning over a year from me playing the game to editing this video, it's hard to iron out everything I wanted to say over that period. But I'm looking forward to getting back into the groove of making these videos. I have plenty more planned. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll enjoy the next one too. Okay, that's enough. See you next time.